Every move is calculated. Every sacrifice intentional. Manipulation, like chess, is a game of control, of positioning others without them realizing they're being played. The most skilled manipulators don't force, they guide, nudging their pawns forward until checkmate feels like their opponent's own doing. How does this happen? Why is it so consistent in its method and execution? And where is the line between sympathy for those who suffer from these traits and accountability for the pain they inflict on others? In this almost certainly not companion series, we examine each episode's origins, production process, behind the scenes, personal thoughts, and most likely go off on some tangents in spite of our best efforts. In this episode, we examine Double Attack, the maneuvers of manipulation. I'm Layla Lawrence.
And I'm Dan Lauer.
And this is Possibly Not. Dan, this one seems like it came out of left field for me. I thought when you first showed me this script for this episode, I thought, this is like a personal opinion situation here. I don't know how I feel about doing this episode. But the more we looked into it, the more I thought, oh no, I've experienced this too. And actually, I think everyone has experienced this. How did you, I always ask you how you come up with these ideas for these episodes and the scripts. Was this something that was kind of ruminating in your head? Because I know you're really interested in sort of the psychology and the hows and the whys as well. Is this something that you've kind of been sitting with for a while?
Yes. I have some personal experience with this and some third or second party experience with this. And I think what's fascinating, this is not exclusive to people who are manipulative or abusive in relationships. But this is the one that I wanted to focus on, which is that it's so consistent. It almost appears as though, or it seems from the outside, that they are, when you talk to people who have experienced this, who've been with a manipulative or abusive partner, or who have, when you talk to people who have, or if you do yourself, I got fascinated by why the steps in the methodology of this sort of manipulation are so consistent that it feels almost like they've all read the same book and practiced the moves really extensively. And that's where, so I was fascinated by it in general, but looking at it from that perspective about learning the moves, so my opponent is going to have their opening gambit be this, and I'm going to do this, and they're going to do that. And that's sort of the allegory of chess, or the metaphor of chess, sort of occurred to me. And that's where the title comes from, is there's a chess move or a series of chess moves, or even a category of chess moves that are called double attacks, where essentially you force your opponent into a position where they only have two moves to make, both of which result in some sort of a loss. But it's almost the illusion of choice is a double attack. It seems as though you're giving them a choice between two positions, both of which are disadvantageous to them. And a manipulator essentially does the same thing, where it gives you the illusion of having a discussion or a argument in good faith, when in actuality, if you're not attuned to what it is that they're trying to accomplish, there's just the illusion of choice. It's like a rigged game. So I've been fascinated by that for a long time, and it was sort of the chess analogy that kind of sparked it for me.
I'm not really familiar with chess. I'm going to be honest with you, as shocking as that may be to you. But it seems like it is just a game of manipulation, is it not? I don't want to get too into like
Well, what's interesting
the
about chess,
ideologies of
I am
chess. But
not.
is it a game of manipulation, kind of bluffing, that sort of thing, or you're
No.
trying to figure out what your opponent is doing?
Yes, I wouldn't say it's necessarily manipulation. What's interesting about chess is that I'm not a great chess player. I'm probably not even a good one, but I understand the game of chess and I'm fascinated um by what chess is. And chess is sort of, it's been called the game of kings, and the reason for that is if you look at the board, it's war. It's basically
Mm.
war. You're trying to kill or capture the king. That's the goal. So it's sort of a kingdom war between two factions. And that's why it's the game of kings, because it's a way to think about war, essentially. Um, and I think what's interesting to me about chess is you can learn the rules, in quotes, in like half an hour, because it's all about the um, the moves that each piece is allowed to make at certain stages in the game. So you learn about what moves a pawn can make, what moves a rook can make, a bishop, the queen, etc., the knight, and those rules are fixed. Those pieces can only move in certain directions. So learning the fundamental rules of chess is almost trivial, but there's billions of permutation, maybe even more than billions of permutations about how the pieces can end up on the board. So it's not about manipulation, but it is about, I think that what um, the greatest chess players in history have in common is an ability to see from the opening through to the end game. And an end game is a
Seeing the outcome.
yeah, the end game in chess is positioning your pieces to force a checkmate. Checkmate essentially is your opponent has no moves left to make. Their king, you've
Mm-hmm.
captured their king, and the game is over. So they're seeing, not only seeing the moves that they want to make, but anticipating based on the moves that. So if you're the chess player in question, not only are you planning your moves in advance, however many turns ahead you're capable of seeing, but anticipating every possible reaction your opponent may have to each move you make. And if you manage to do that, which I think the great ones do, the chess masters do, that's why people who are chess masters win so consistently, because there's just something about the way that they think that allows them
Mm-hmm.
to say at any given position or several positions ahead, I'm going to do this. And the options my opponent are, so I move my piece here, and here's what my opponent is likely to do. And then you already have your next move planned to cover any of the eventualities of the move that your opponent makes. So it's not about manipulation necessarily. I mean, there's a psychological component to it, and I think at a very, very high level, it's almost like physically exhausting. Um, but what's interesting is that the rules are so clearly defined and so simple, that you can learn the fundamentals very quickly. But there's a certain, you study and learn, and there's like tricks. There's certain openings that you can use that if somebody's not very well versed in chess and they're just going to be playing without thinking ahead. I know some of these opening gambits where essentially they don't know it, but you can anticipate what a novice chess player is going to do, and you can force them into a checkmate in 5 or 6 moves, and it's over before they
That would
know
be
it.
me.
Yeah. Um, so I'm not a good or even proficient chess player. I'm more fascinated by the psychology of chess. But because of the rules are so simple, I thought I could draw a parallel between chess and manipulators,
Mm-hmm.
in as much as they all seem to operate in with the same moves and in the same
Do
order.
you
But the
do you think that even though they operate in this within the same rules and the same order, that they all can see through to the outcome? Because I know we're going to get into this later if we've experienced it or not, but I can think about instances for myself personally where I don't think the person was necessarily seeing ahead. I think they were just acting instinctually to get what they want.
Well, that's an interesting
but
distinction.
I don't know if they were seeing ahead.
Well, because that's kind of like the thrust of my interest in it, because I mean, if you look at the opening and look at what the interaction is that we describe, that's very consistent with how a manipulator operates. The way which they start.
Oh yeah, we literally just watched it, and I said it was like you were inside of one of my old relationships, like you were a fly on the wall.
Right. And we also address whether or not they know they're doing it. And does that mean that it's inherent to their character and the need for thought is unnecessary, or does it mean that they know that they're doing it and that's what their goal is? I think that's an open question, but but I'm also like but eventually it becomes a situation where we discuss more in depth when it gets more extreme, that you're not really playing. You, as the person who's being manipulated, thinks that you're playing chess, when in actuality, the manipulator is making it seem as though you are, but keeps changing the rules of the game all the time.
Yeah,
and I
feel
think
that.
It becomes, if you're a person who's never been in the company of a manipulator, or of somebody who behaves in this way, think of yourself as a novice chess player. The more experience you get, the easier it's going to become to identify these moves that you're making. But the difference is that if you're in a partnership or a romantic relationship with the person who's the manipulative, even though you understand that it's coming, and they always do this is how when we get into an argument, I know that it's going to go down this way. You have an emotional attachment to it, and
yes.
People tend to people are strange creatures. They it's not as easy to just say fuck off as you want it to be. It's not as easy to leave as you want it to be. And there's this codependency that develops because part of what the manipulator does is make you feel reliant on their sense of reality to define not only your position within the relationship, but your position, kind of your sense of self. So,
oh yeah, you feel trapped for sure.
The more experienced you get, so I mean, that's where it sort of deviates from chess, and that's where it becomes less like they're really great at chess and you're a novice, and more like they're tricking you into thinking that the rules that you feel are clearly defined for playing a game, a non-cooperative game, is what chess would be in mathematics.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to like self-preservation as well. I think that sometimes these manipulators, and of course I'm going based on my own experience here, but aren't necessarily intelligent enough to think several moves ahead and to see the outcome, but more acting on just real instinctual, selfish self-preservation.
Well,
like, I fucked up, but I need to come out on top.
Well, and I don't think we need to rehash all the steps because it's really clearly defined in the episode. But I think that's what's interesting is that, well, there are manipulators who are like short con operators they understand human emotion and psychology, and they are really fine tuning and selecting targets very, very specifically, and running confidence schemes on them because they understand how a person is likely to react. That's not every manipulator. And then we also get into manipulation versus pathological lying versus antisocial personality disorder versus all these personality disorders. But I think what's interesting, to me at least, is, to your point, if they don't know they're doing it, and I believe that that's true because I don't believe that the ones that I have encountered don't appear to be that smart on the surface to me. Because what's interesting about manipulators, at least the ones that I have heard about anecdotally, also seem to have a very high opinion of themselves, even though there's really nothing to justify that high opinion. they may not be that smart. They may not be that successful. It may be a cover for insecurity. But why is it that it's like, if I've talked to you about your experience, I would say that I've had
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 conversations with women who have dealt with this sort of thing with men, and I know that it goes the other way around too. But those are the ones that are on the top of my head, and I could take your story and stick it on another woman that I've had a conversation like this about, and
Mm-hmm.
the way the manipulative conversation goes are almost interchangeable. It's always this,
Yes.
or not always, but very often the same steps, and that was sort of the impetus for this episode for me, which is, isn't that why would that be? Isn't that
Do you
interesting?
think we all have that? We all have that inside of us, but it's just
No.
some of us choose not to do that. You don't think everyone is capable of this sort of abusive manipulation?
Well, I guess everybody's capable of murder, technically.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if that is something that is inside of all of us. I mean, when you get into like the id and the super id and all that, and like the self-preservation and thing, I mean, it is instinctual for all humans to default to self-preservation.
but I think that
Um,
there's a self-preservation that can be achieved without manipulation.
I agree 100%. But that's, I think my question is, do you think that everyone has it within them to be this way, and that's why so often it kind of follows the same steps, the same rules, because that is sort of interwoven into humans, just the way we are, but so many people choose not to go down that path or choose a different route than
No, because
using those tactics.
I don't think it's a choice. Well, we get into something sticky here. If they know they're doing it and it's a strategy, then it's a choice. If they're not even aware that they're doing it, then they didn't make a choice. That's just them.
But how often do you think people aren't aware that they're doing it?
Um,
Because I think, personally, I think that everyone knows.
well, there's a
I think even if it's just like a little
here's
scratch in the back of your mind, I think everybody knows when they're doing it.
Well, here's the distinction with a difference here, because there's 2 things that you're talking about there. One is it's a very childish instinct that I do agree that we all share, and hopefully as we mature we grow out of it, which is, I want to get my way.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has that, and I think that they know they're doing that. I'm talking specifically about the strategies that manipulators employ in interpersonal relationships to achieve that end and the consistency therein. I don't think they're thinking, they're going to accuse me
What's the
of
next
this,
step?
I'm going to do that, and then they're going to say this, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
unfolds, and my fascination is, why does it unfold that way so consistently? I don't think that they know that they're doing it. I think that um especially the ones who are not hyper intelligent and who are not beginning a conversation. Like, that's why I want to draw the comparison with con men. They enter an interpersonal relationship knowing all the moves in advance. They are going to manipulate you to make you see the world the way that they need you to, in order to get from you what it is that they want. I mean, sociopaths are notorious for this, which is that they don't really aren't capable of seeing people as people. They see them as things and opportunities. And what is the way that I can manipulate you to get out of you? I don't feel anything for you. You're just a useful tool. So
Mm-hmm.
how can I manipulate your psychology and sort of your psyche to make you see the world the way that I want you to, in order to get out of you what it is that I need, and then I'm going to never see you again and never think about you again. But manipulators inside of relationships oftentimes are employing these strategies to hold on to the relationship that they're sort of abusing and misusing. And so
Yeah.
they're not sociopaths. And so, like, this is a very, like, we all have self-preservation and we all have strategies to get what we want, but hopefully, even if we have this quote unquote in us, um, to have these dodges and maneuvers in order to avoid responsibility and make the other, like, alter the other person's reality, um, it's not instinctive for all of us, and you can mature out of it and discover, um, and hopefully employ healthier ways to self-preserve, not to the detriment of somebody else, and to identify that behavior in yourself. So I don't think it's universal. I think that, I mean, children are sort of like this. Children will say anything that they need to get what they want and to stay out of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's almost like these people get sort of perhaps even locked in a state of arrested development where they never really grow beyond that and determine a healthy way to take responsibility, to share responsibility, to make admissions, and to self-preserve and get what they want without manipulation.
I think that's also a product of your environment as well. Just sort of grow. I mean, all of this stuff happens to us when we're young and sort of malleable as well. But let me ask you this, because this is a question that I have. I have thoughts about how women are just natural manipulators, and we'll get into that later, so nobody freak out about it, okay? I'm not like being an asshole about it. I do have like a genuine thought about this.
Yes.
But if I have to have like a confrontation with anybody, if whether it is something that I have done wrong or something that they have done wrong, or, you know, any sort of difference, any sort of discord, I will almost plan out in my head what I'm going to say, and I can kind of run the scene in my head as far as like hearing what they're going to say back to me, knowing what my retort will be. Is that weird? Do you do that? Does anybody else do that?
Well, of course, but that's
where I
that's
kind
planning...
of like, is that manipulation? I don't know. Like where I have that kind of like, okay, well then they're going to say this to me, and then I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to say that.
No.
And I can really play the whole scene in my head.
Well, let me ask you, are you willing to make them believe that something that is true is not in order to win the argument? Are you willing to reshape their reality and deny and turn it back around
honestly,
on them?
Honestly, I have done that. I won't deny that I have done that.
Well, because you're talking about, and I think that we all do that because we get desperate. But there's a there's nothing wrong with. You can have a heated conversation where you turn, if you feel that you're right, because there's two methods sort of argument or debate, and I would classify those as good faith and bad faith. A good faith argument is when you and the person that you're arguing with or debating with are sticking to the same set of facts, but you have a difference of opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong. I do this all the time. I do this with you. Sometimes we get off of possibly not, and you have an opinion, and I engage with the facts of your opinion and try to talk through those with you or anybody else who I have a disagreement with, but I don't keep shifting the goalpost. So there's nothing wrong with having a good faith argument where we both agree what the meaning of the word is, and I'm not like, you know, for example, because that's where I think...
But not manipulating facts.
No, or manipulating you into thinking that, like, misstating or restating something that you said to make it seem like it has a different meaning than it did at the time.
Oof.
You're just...
This seems like a terribly poignant episode this point in history, society.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it's very extreme at the moment. It's nothing new, but it's at an extreme. But yes, that's that. So if you and I are discussing, I mean, here's an example that I think I'm comfortable bringing up. If you are, is that we, after the recording of this, I don't know how we got onto it, but we had a discussion about religion. I have we don't need to rehash that argument, but here's my point: is that.
Yeah, you guys don't get to hear the good stuff. Sometimes we just talk about things and you guys don't get to hear.
but I have a very very distinct, very well defined, very clearly thought out, and very decisive opinions about religion and the existence of
You?
God
Decisive opinions?
or
What are you on about?
or a God. I don't do much wondering anymore. I did a lot of wondering in my teens and my 20s, and I'm pretty comfortable with where I stand. And we were having a discussion, not even an argument, but a discussion about this, where
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit more fluidity to your opinion or how you
Yes.
feel. And I couldn't disagree more with a lot of the positions that you were stating. But
Mm-hmm.
as I was arguing, or not even arguing, but discussing it with you, I was clearly engaging with your points as opposed to shifting the goalpost and sort of reshaping what it is that you said to change the argument
Mm-hmm.
into something that you weren't trying to talk about. So that's a good faith argument or debate as opposed
Yeah, I
to
wouldn't say that we ever argue. I think we very often debate things, but I don't think you and I ever argue.
yeah. And so and that there's a difference there because I was being disingenuous, I would say, "Well, what do you mean by religion?" And you would give a definition. I'd be like, "Well, that's not clear enough." Like what do you
Mm-hmm.
mean what do you mean when you say religion? And
Yeah.
we don't we're entitled to our own feelings, but we're not entitled to our own facts. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
as a
Oof.
general
That hits. That hits right now.
as a general definition, like we all share the English language and words mean things that are slightly
Mm-hmm.
different, but religion in inverted commas um means roughly the same thing to everybody. So somebody who gets you trapped in what we call or I call torture testing on the definition of a word and doesn't let you move beyond that in an argument is not
Mm-hmm.
arguing in good faith. What do you mean by
Well, and
God?
that,
What
as
do you
we
mean by
stated in the episode, is
it
exhausting as
is? And
well.
you end up you want to forfeit for
Yes.
chess as a chess comparison because it is exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. Well, what is God? What is religion? What is a woman? What is a man?
Yeah.
What is grass?
I
What are
also think
trees?
when I was younger, I was probably more willing to argue till I was blue in the face about something like that. But as I've got older, I'm just like, okay, and I just walk away. Like I can't get into that sort of exhausted ring around the rosies anymore.
Yeah. But so I don't think that there's anything wrong with okay, my business partner or my husband or my wife, they did something wrong, and I want to confront them about it, and I want to have a conversation. I It's not so egregious that I want to dissolve the relationship, but I also can't let it stand. I know what I want to get
Mm-hmm.
out of it. I want to confront them. I want to have a discussion about it. Here's how I'll open. Here's what they'll probably say because it's an interpersonal relationship, so I know them fairly well. But planning your angle of attack, as long as you engage with the reality of the facts and listen to them and respond in good faith, as opposed to shifting the goalposts all the time, um, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just going into a discussion prepared so you can express yourself. That's not
Yeah.
manipulation,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And and we also touch on, I mean, we touch on manipulation and also pathological lying, and that was kind of the thing with pathological lying. People throw around that term, I think, quite easily, just sort of like, oh, they're a pathological liar. But that is truly I don't know the correct terminology for it, but it's like a mental predisposition. Like it is truly like a mental illness being a pathological liar, is it not?
It's not a diagnosis, but it's a symptom of several personality disorders.
So it's not something that should I mean, we've talked about this before as well, about your disdain for people sort of throwing around these diagnoses that
Yes.
aren't real. So pathological lying is something that someone is, I think one of the cornerstones for it is that the person is completely unaware that they are doing it.
Well, and I think the interesting thing that people miss about one of the kind of defining characteristics of pathological lying, because manipulators lie, and this is why I wanted to include that, is all manipulators
Mm-hmm.
lie, but the difference between manipulators who lie, people who lie to gain something and pathological liars is pathological liars, whether they know they're doing it or not, lie compulsively, almost to their own detriment. They can't help it. They might tell a lie that hurts them, as opposed to a manipulator who is lying, or somebody who just lies, doesn't have any moral qualms about lying to gain something. That's just somebody who has a little bit of moral flexibility about the way that they want to achieve something. A pathological liar will lie about a lie to people who,
because they just can't help themselves.
They can't help it. A pathological liar will be standing up in front of you talking about how hard it is to be quadriplegic. You're looking at them and they're standing.
Yeah.
You know that's not true. And they're saying it anyway, and they look ridiculous. That, I think, is indicative of something that's compulsive. Obviously, if somebody had a choice to not do that, they wouldn't. They lie seemingly at random for no particular reason.
So it's not for personal gain. It's something that is they just genuinely cannot speak the truth. They have to embellish or change the truth somehow.
Yeah, and especially, it becomes, they lie about lying, and it becomes so ridiculous that people, it's sort of easy to mock, because they'll lie about things that are demonstrably untrue, like in the present moment, and they'll kind of stick to it to their own detriment. They don't really gain anything. I think that would be a hallmark of pathological. I think that would be a hallmark of pathological lying.
Yeah, and I think that it would be nigh on impossible to keep track of all of those lies as well. I don't know where I heard it, but at some point in time, probably in my acting career or something like that, I heard that the best lies are 70% truth. And I've always stuck to that. If I ever have to lie about anything, which, I have white lies here and there and bigger lies here and there as well. I'm not perfect, but the best lies are 70% truth. No, I'm not. I know it's shocking to you.
It's kind of devastating to find out this way.
I know. God. All right. Well, I guess we'll just end this here.
Everybody lies.
Layla's not perfect.
Or everybody, maybe everybody doesn't. It's not always beneficial. To your point, look at it the other way. So you could say that every good lie, every believable lie, should be 70% of the truth.
Yeah, I don't know if we should say good lie. I suppose every believable lie. I don't know if any lies are good, but every believable lie is probably the better way to say it.
But let's take some of the malice out of it and reverse that and say that every communication omits 30% of the unnecessary. Look at it this way. We all lie all the time. You walk up to somebody who claims to have lost 20 pounds, and that's obviously not true. It looks like they gained 10. But they say, I'm so proud of myself because I've lost 20 pounds. Do you say, no, I think you look fatter? Or do you say
no?
What do you say? Oh, good for you. That's really impressive. Yeah. That's a lie.
Is that?
That's a lie.
Yeah, I feel like tact and lying in that way kind of walk like a parallel with each other.
And what are you doing there? If everybody was honest 100%
no, you're right.
of the
you
time.
Are lying.
Yeah, but if everyone was honest 100% of the time, there would be no friends.
Well, that's what, children completely lack that. That's why so many children will look at women and be like, do you have a baby in your belly? No. Why would you say that? Because of like a lower belly pooch or something like that. But kids will say that because they just don't have that tact or that polite sort of filter. They're just out here spewing truths.
Do you say lower belly pooch?
Yeah, a little lower belly pooch, Was
a pooch a dog? Pooch? Pouch?
I guess, but yeah, it's like a different, I don't know. You've never heard that?
I don't know. When I hear the word pooch, I think of a dog.
Yeah, I suppose so as well.
Anyway, pooch.
But this also, okay, so this is something else that we haven't actually talked about before, but I'm going to bring it up to you now. when I was little, I mean, yes, kids lie for their own gain. I was a notorious liar. But it was because I was an only child, and sort of in the vein of like, if something was broken or if I had done something wrong and my mum would ask me about it, I would lie through my teeth about it. And I think that kind of comes from being an only child, because the stuff that I would come up with would be like ridiculous, like completely implausible. But because I didn't have someone to blame it on, like I didn't even have a dog to blame it on. I just made up these like insane lies when I was younger.
What kid wants to get in trouble? That's all. Your whole purpose in life is to avoid getting in trouble. So, I mean,
yeah, but I wonder if that's where that kind of like nature versus nurture thing comes in as well. Like if I was doing that at such a young age, because this also kind of bleeds into, and I know I'm kind of skipping down on our notes here, but this kind of bleeds into my thing where I think women are natural manipulators, because I think so many women are told to not say anything, are told to sit there and be quiet and don't talk up and don't make loud noises and don't make yourself big, make yourself small, make yourself quiet, that you kind of have to default to manipulation because it is a quiet way of getting your way rather than like getting in someone's face with like facts and whatever, because a lot of times people don't listen to women. And I hate to sound like, the poor little woman are here, but like a lot of times you can't come at it from that sort of, I mean, I say aggressive because that's the only word I can think of, but that kind of like aggressive, really assertive place, because you've been told not to. So you kind of come at it from like a backwards sort of way, and that's where the manipulation is born. And that's why I think that a lot of women, I won't say all women, but I think a lot of women are sort of made into manipulators, sort of natural manipulators. It just becomes like something that we know instinctively how to do, and we all do it because you have to come from that quiet place rather than actually being bold and upfront with facts with someone. Because a lot of times you can get into a man's face and you can meet them with facts, but because it's coming from a woman, they don't want to listen to you. So you have to kind of make them believe that they came up with it on their own. And that is, I mean, that's a form of manipulation as well.
Well, I'm going to torture test you on this just a little bit. I think that's...
Yeah, go for it.
Those are incredibly broad statements about manipulation, men and women. They're very
yeah, well, and that's
general.
what I was saying. I don't want a blanket statement, anything. This is just my theory. And that's why I'm saying, like, some women, obviously, a lot of men, my husband and yourself included, I know I could come to either one of you with facts and be like, hey, this is not right, or this is whatever. And you'll be perfectly willing to accept that. But I also know there are a lot of men who would not accept that because I've experienced it.
Well, anecdotal experiences.
So I don't want to say like all
dangerous,
all women, all men, or what. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want to say all women, all men. I think that's something that I think that's why women are kind of seen as like manipulators, because we a lot of times have to be.
Well, can you give me an example? Can you give me a scenario of this playing out?
I don't know if I can give you a scenario off the top of my head. I mean, I guess it's just kind of what I was saying, where it's like, if you go to someone and say, like, if you go to, I mean, I'm saying obviously male and female, I'm pitting against each other here. If you go to a man and you come up with some sort of fact to them and you say, okay,
hey, let's do this. Wait, I got an example. Let's do this.
Okay.
So we've already established that I mean, we're partners in Almost Certainly Not.
Yes.
And I invited you to be partners and co-producers. So we have to set aside the fact that I value your opinion and want facts from you. So let's set that aside, and let's use as an example something where we have not had a disagreement, but it's kind of one of the few places where I have put my foot down and kind of used veto power and said it's never going to happen, which is merchandising.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah.
So you come to me and say, or you did come to me and have said, like, a t-shirt or a mug would be a good idea. And I have said, no, I think that cheapens what
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to do. I'm not going to do it. And I've stated why. I've given my examples about why I don't like when people do that. I think that it's taking
Mm-hmm.
advantage of the audience, et cetera, et cetera. And I think my explanation has made sense to you. And we have sort of left it there and said, well, okay, that I know where her position is. I know where my position is. And you don't feel strongly enough about it that you've come back to me. Let's imagine that that it's really important to you, and you know that if you come at me and just say, like, hey, I think t-shirts would be a good idea, you're just going to get another no. Is there a way that you could think of to employ what it is you're talking about to talk around it, make it seem like it's my idea? Like the kind of the thing that you're kind of
That's
driving
something that
at.
you are really staunch about. So I don't know if it's something that I could make it seem as your idea, but you've already given me a little on this one, which I don't know if you remember, but because I was talking about it so much, you said that you wouldn't mind, like, giving them away as a prize or something like that for Patreons, or I can't remember what it was, but I mean, you did give in on it
Well,
a little bit.
I did, but I kind of put it back. Maybe this was manipulative. I sent you a PNG of our logo, and I said, "Knock yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it." So I did sort of turn it back around on you, which we haven't done yet.
No.
But I'm just thinking about. I mean, maybe it's a bad example. Maybe because you know that I'm going to back to our earlier points. I'm going to argue in good faith. I'm going to engage with your point and
Yeah.
give you honest reasons why I don't think it's a good idea or I don't want to do it. And then you'll come back at me with the same. I don't.
Well, it's also something that I don't particularly have like a truly vested interest. I'll give you an example. I have an example in my head now. When my husband and I, we live in Central America. I'm not going to get any more specific than that, but we live in Central America. When we moved here, we came here with a Kia Sportage, 2-wheel drive Kia Sportage. Just not practical for the amount of off-roading that we have to do here. I had told him that we needed a 4-wheel drive. He was so resistant to it because he loved his little Kia Sportage for the longest time. He was so resistant to us getting a 4-wheel drive. He wanted it to stay within a certain price point. He wanted it to stay within a certain... It was just, there were a lot of stipulations around it, and it was almost impossible. I found a car, an SUV, and I fully manipulated this man into going to see this SUV, and then kind of I don't know if it's making him believe that it was his idea, but we paid way out of our price range for this thing. But it was one of those things where it was like, hey, why don't we just go, we'll go see it. Well, you drive it. You know, oh, you look so good driving this big car. It really suits you. Oh, wow. You feel how smooth it is going over these speed bumps. You feel how easy it takes this terrain. Oh, wow. You know, this would be really good if we ever need to. It was just like all that kind of stuff, and not in that kind of condescending sort of way. Because I knew in my head that the 4-wheel drive was the best thing for us and our family, and just from a safety perspective, from everything. But I really had to like massage the idea into him. And I feel like that was like a weird way to say that. But like, I feel like that's a form
I
of...
don't get that personal.
But I feel like that's manipulation as well, because I couldn't just go to him. And I love my husband dearly, and he is by no means one of these like egotistical dudes or whatever who doesn't want to listen to the little woman. But I had tried from one angle with the facts and be saying it would be safer, it would be, you know, advantageous to us for all of these reasons and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And it just was not getting through to him.
Well,
then I kind of had to come at it from like a more persuasive, I guess, sort of manipulative angle. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, yeah, this would be a really good idea. And then he started coming up with reasons why it would be such a good idea. So it was almost like, well, now this is my reasoning for this, and now I'm agreeable to this. So it kind of like turned it on its head.
Well, I mean, I guess I have two questions there. Is what would he say happened if you put it to if he listens back
he
to
knows.
this?
He would say that I manipulated him.
Okay.
Fully.
Okay. But would it be manipulation if you printed the t-shirts yourself and did a survey and found that 150,000 people wanted to buy those and presented me with that set of facts? If you gave me more facts so that I was better equipped to make a decision, because what did you actually do? You took him to see the car that he hadn't seen in person. You let him drive it, and you complimented him. You talked about how good it was. Were you lying about some of that? Maybe, probably. But it kind of, I mean, I don't know. That removes any kind of agency from him. Is that manipulation?
I guess I was sort of like giving him my opinions.
Yeah.
And then having him believe that those opinions were his own, or taking those opinions upon himself and sort of changing his mind about things.
Were you lying? Did you think that it handled well?
I did. No, I love the car. I think it's great. I don't know about lying, but embellishing, maybe embellishing. Is that lying? Is embellishing lying? I suppose in a way.
This is all. That's a good example, and this is kind of.
But it's a lot of like gray area, isn't it? Yeah, it's a lot of gray area.
I think.
But I mean, going back to it, because I know you've got on me before about saying that I think all women or not all. I shouldn't say all women. That women are more inclined to be manipulators. And I'm just giving you my theory. My theory is that women are inclined to be manipulators because for so long you're told to not make noise. And so to get anything done the way that you want it to be done, you have to kind of go this like manipulative route. Otherwise, you're seen as someone who is combative. I mean, I've been called combative before in my life when I've tried at work, when I've tried to, use just normal confrontation. And then all of a sudden, I'm combative. How am I combative? Well, but if I went through the same thing with a more manipulative route, it would have been fine.
Well, here's what I'll say is because now I thought that was
we're getting off topic now.
Well, no, we're not. We're still kind of on it, but I want to backtrack a little bit and kind of because now we're getting into sort of the history of women's roles in society and maybe even dipping a toe into feminism here, which is not a bad thing, but that was a very concrete example. I didn't disagree necessarily, but you said this while we were recording the episode, and I said, that's a bold statement. I wonder if she can back that up. So that's all I wanted to do here. The thing that I will say, number one, is I have opinions on this up to a point, because I am not a woman and will never understand how it feels to be a woman with those things. Feeling or actually having those limitations.
I didn't know where you were going with having those things. I thought you were gonna talk
titties. That is, I will say that is something I know for a fact women use on heterosexual men to manipulate, because
which is a form of manipulation. Yeah.
Once tits come out, the heterosexual male brain ceases higher function. I forget.
They don't even have to come out,
or to,
in my experience.
Yeah, just to be just enough exposure to be obvious. The higher routines of function in the heterosexual male brain cease all meaningful functionality, and I will be like, what was I talking about? We were arguing. No, we were arguing. I know we were.
Put those away. Put them away.
Well, no, that's because I want that's the state. That's the perfect state of things. So I'm like, I don't care. No, but what I was going to say is I can't intuit or relate to the experience of either having the feeling that those impositions about not being direct are upon me, or it actually being imposed. And the other thing is that I think I know you know me extremely well, and I think that this has been your experience with me, and I am very comfortable. Like, all of my favorite bosses have been women. I like
Mm-hmm.
strong, opinionated women. I don't like shrinking
Mm-hmm.
violence. I don't like women who are just going to agree with everything I say. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming at it. It's a disadvantageous position for me on this specific topic because
Mm-hmm.
I don't relate from either side. I don't have that
But
experience and I don't want that experience. So,
that is also why we are so close,
yeah,
because I don't mind manipulating people to get what I want, manipulating men mostly to get what I want, but I don't respect those men.
yeah,
So I would not stay friends with them.
yeah. And I don't need to be engaged with that way because, yeah, I don't know. I don't have those feelings.
Are you a feminist, Dan?
No, I'm not an anythingist. I don't like ists. But I think I
But
can
anyway,
not.
that just to kind of put a button on that. That was my it's a theory more than anything else. I know it's a very broad statement, like you said. It's a huge generalization.
A
That's just my
very
theory
It's
as
a
to
very broad statement because it's coming out of your mouth.
mm-hmm.
You're broad.
Boo. He's not a feminist, guys. He's not a feminist.
But
Um,
I love women
you
and I
also
respect women very much.
you also brought up something when we were I think it was after we were done recording this episode or just shortly before we had finished, and I like my head kind of exploded a little bit and I went, okay, hold on, we need to save this for possibly not. You were talking about how the idea of manipulation, lying, that sort of thing being either nature versus nurture, that kind of thing, how it relates to pedophilia, which I feel is like a real stepping on eggshells, touchy ground
It
sort of
is.
thing. But
It's
you gave me a theory of your own. I mean, I think I will say it's a theory on how it relates to that. And I said, save it for possibly not. So can you reiterate what you said?
Well, I want to begin with, because this is controversial, obviously.
Yes.
My point, I think, is sort of irrefutable about how I think about this, but I want to lay some groundwork here. So I did some additional research to back up my point, and I'm going to state that clearly first, and I'm also going to cite my references for this in the description of this episode, so people can
I
go
think
and
that is
look.
important. Yeah.
So, so what we're talking about is the incidence of pedophilia and sort of the born versus made conundrum. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to start here, and like I said, I'm gonna summarize this, but I'm gonna put uh, citations to all of these studies in the description so people can see what it is that I'm referring to. But so we're talking about the incidence of pedophilia and research related to that, specifically related to um, whether or not pedophilia is a sexuality or is the result of trauma, a child sexual abuse in the person's past, and are pedophiles born or made or both, and what does
Mm-hmm.
current research tell us? So,
Yeah.
as of this recording, quote, research suggests that pedophilia is influenced by both neurobiological factors and environmental experiences, with estimates indicating that 40 to 60% of cases may stem from innate neurological differences, while 30 to 50% of convicted offenders report childhood sexual abuse in their own history. Brain imaging
Mm-hmm.
studies reveal structural abnormalities in regions linked to impulse control and sexual regulation, and some genetic and neurodevelopment factors, e.g., a lower IQ and more bizarrely left handedness, may
So
contribute to predisposition. However, while child sexual abuse is a risk factor, most victims do not become abusers. And many non-offending, this is important, many non-offending pedophiles lack a history of abuse. A conducted study which sampled a large anonymous population for a survey found that 40 to 60% of men with pedophilic interests reported, this is important, self-reported, never engaging in illegal behavior. One study used neuroimaging to differentiate between those with pedophilic attractions who had offended and those who had not, concluding that a significant portion of pedophilic individuals never act on their urges. The consensus is that pedophilia likely results from a combination of biological predisposition and environmental influences rather than a simple born versus made dichotomy. So and like I said, I'll cite links to all of those individual studies where that summary comes from. But so having said that, and that's kind of that's National Institutes of Health. I think it was Harvard, American Society of Psychiatrists. So not just Wikipedia or Google. The point that I made to you that took your breath away a little bit is, and something that we deal with here, is sympathy versus accountability.
Yes.
If somebody is born, and we can kind of eliminate the born versus made here, whether they're born and their sexuality is pedophilia, they will never progress past an attraction to an inappropriate aged person, somebody under the age of consent. They'll never be attracted to anyone over that age. Or they are sexually abused themselves and have their sexual development arrested around the age that they were abused, and the wires get crossed, and so they find themselves incapable of attraction to anyone over that age. If they never act on it, they don't engage in downloading we're fucked already with this topic because I don't want to say child pornography. They never download they don't contribute to delinquency.
Download images or video, like any sort of media.
Any sort of media that would be illegal, because obviously anything that represents a person under the age of consent is illegal to create or possess. Never commit a sexual act or abuse on a minor. And let's say that they know this about themselves and there are therapeutic approaches.
So like they're just never acting on the impulses. Like they have the impulses, but they are never acting on those impulses. It's all just stays within their own brain.
And they understand this and treat it like a mental health condition and dedicate their life, or a large portion of their life, understanding how damaging that this would be to anybody they inflicted upon, and how transgressive it is and how wrong it is. But they are, under the definition, a pedophile. They're attracted to underage people. And they're either born that way, that's their sexuality, or they're made that way, but they never do anything illegal and they never hurt a child. Why should we not have sympathy for them?
Yeah, when you first brought this, it's very difficult for me to sort of speak this way or think this way on this topic. I guess I had never thought about it that way. I had never thought about the people who have these impulses but then never act upon them. And having sat with it for a little while now, it's been, like a week since we recorded this episode and since you brought that up. Yes, I do suppose they deserve some, but it's so difficult because it is something that is so inherently disgusting and wrong,
Well,
and
it's
it,
morally
especially
repugnant.
someone who has a child, like
I have
it's
a
just
child
like
too.
it makes me go into, yeah, it just makes me go into this like mode of like the protector mode, like absolutely not, like there is no gray area, absolutely not. It makes me go into the protector mode. So it's something that I really have to like sit with and stew on.
Well,
But I do see what you're saying. I
yeah,
do see what you're saying. And
because
I think you are correct. I think that those people do deserve sympathy. I'm sure a lot of people who are that way don't live full lives
well, and
because they probably become frustrated with
Well,
themselves.
and they might be disgusted with themselves. They might hate themselves. It's probably
Yes. Yeah.
torture, and they have to.
Yeah.
But they have a strong enough moral barometer, and a strong enough morality that they understand the damage that it does, and so they
Hmm.
dedicate the. That must be incredibly difficult. Now, there's a
It must be awful. Yeah.
and there's a line in the sand. I have sympathy for those people, and I understand, and I have respect for them as somebody who has, I mean, obviously nothing like this, but I have pretty severe depression. That takes a lot of work. It's hell. It
Hmm.
can be hell. You have to remain ever vigilant, and it takes a lot of effort to stay committed to your treatment to make sure that I have to keep a constant eye on it. It would be even, but
A lot of
a lot of
self-awareness.
self-awareness, and the only person who's really going to get hurt, I mean, on a, well, the worst possible outcome, a lot of people would be hurt, but it's really only
Yes.
hurting myself if I, in the short term, if I stop taking my medication and I stop going to therapy and all the rest of it. But for these people, so when they deviate, when they give into that, when they transgress, and they do the thing that they've been trying to avoid this whole time, and they hurt a child, virtually or in person, my sympathy is extinguished and they need to be punished.
Hmm.
As a society, we can't allow that, because not only is it going to potentially ruin that person's life, but we may have just created a new pedophile. So that's where my sympathy, so there's a very clear defining line where I have sympathy for you, and I'm sorry that it's this way for you, and it's admirable that you're dedicating so much of your energy to making sure you don't hurt anybody, and then when you do hurt somebody, go fuck yourself. I don't care anymore.
Yeah. And
um
this is kind of, I mean, it seems a little bit like it's a stretch from the topic that we were talking about, but just bringing it back to the liars and the manipulators, is that kind of the same way you feel about, like, people have that within them, but if they don't act upon it, they can deserve sympathy?
yes, especially as somebody who, you've already kind of dropped the dime that you've been in a relationship that reminds you of this scenario.
Oh yeah, it is a classic. Classic follows literally. We watched like the first 5 minutes of the episode that you had cut together before we started this, and it was just step by step by step. I mean, actually, the way that I found out, because I didn't know when I was in the relationship that it was abusive manipulation. I read an article after I was out of the relationship, that when I had moved back in with my parents, my mother had just left kind of laying around for some reason, because they suspected that I was in an abusive relationship, but I didn't know. And I read the article and literally ticked every single box. And I came to a realization right there that, oh my God, I was in an abusive relationship. And I honestly hadn't thought about it that way previous to that. So in that way, like, so much so that, like, textbook kind of following those steps the same way it did in the first 5 minutes of the episode that we just watched.
Well, and yes, so to my point, uh there are, for people who are uh abusive manipulators, the reason that we went through the whole pedophilia thing is that there are, um uh it shares some DNA with people with personality disorders that might lead to this sort of thing, which is that people with those personality disorders sometimes are born, and sometimes are made, and
Hmm.
sometimes are both. If they're born, like, how righteous and correct is it to blame someone for the way they were born? And how righteous and correct is it to blame someone for what happened to them as a child? I would argue
Mm-hmm.
not at all. It would be like, I mean, if you're born a sociopath until you hurt somebody, that's not, you were born that way. That's not your fault.
Yeah.
And if you were made, if you have a genetic predisposition to sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder, is what the actual diagnosis is. If you
Oh, I
have
didn't know that.
a genetic, yeah, sociopathy is sort of it's a pop psychology term. It's actually called antisocial personality disorder. Um, there's a spectrum of
Which is a
personality
term that
disorders.
gets thrown around as well.
Yeah. Which means something, again, very specific. But my point and what we touch on in the episode, and the thing that I think that you picked up on as opinion in the beginning, is the closing, which is that the person that you're thinking of, one of his parents might have been an abusive manipulator, and he may have
Oh,
learned it.
yes, they were.
Okay, so he learned it, right? What
Mm-hmm.
difference does that make to you about the damage it inflicted upon you, and how much should it? And were his parents abusive manipulators? We can go
Mm-hmm.
back infinitely to the point where no one's actually responsible for their actions. And I think that everyone who is doing the thing at the time that is transgressive and hurting someone needs to be held accountable at that moment. We can
Yeah.
take into account their experiences, but they're passing that trauma on, and it's at that point that they need to be held responsible. So
You have to make a choice not to perpetuate the cycle. I mean, I know that's a big, like, sort of pop culture thing at the moment, is like breaking generational trauma at the moment. Like, that's a big thing.
and
And
it's
rightly
unfortunate.
so.
It's an unfortunate thing, and the world is really unfair, but now it's your responsibility.
Yes,
It's
I wholeheartedly agree.
it's not your fault that it happened to you and that it made you that way, but it's your responsibility to deal with it because no one else can. And it's awful,
I
but that's the way it is. That's it.
I also think that that is the way a lot of people in these relationships, and I'm speaking entirely from personal experience, I had sympathy for him because of his upbringing and because that was the only thing that he had seen. And that was how I justified a lot of what he did.
And I think the
So
sympathy
that's also like a slippery slope
well,
there,
the
because I think
sympathy
you're right. It's up to him to make the choice to see what's happening and to say this is wrong.
and I think that's why we started the conversation about, I mean, that is, I think a lot of people are going to have, I have a visceral reaction to my own thoughts about this, but I have thought long and hard about this, about anyone who's born a certain way or made a certain way through. We spend a lot of time in our society, especially those of us on what I would consider the right side of history, talking about not holding people responsible for the way that they're born, sexuality,
Yes.
mental health, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't extend as far as people who have what we would consider to be morally repugnant urges who don't act on them. We blame them
Yes.
for that before they do anything. It's sort of like thought crime. And so
Mm-hmm.
if people sit with this the way that you have and think about what it actually is that I'm saying, with a very clear defining line between the moment where you have these impulses and spend your life dedicated to making sure that you never hurt anyone, and then you hurt someone, that's a different discussion. We cannot allow
Yeah.
that. Whether it is a sociopath who becomes a serial killer, someone who was in an abusive, manipulative home in their childhood who does that to partners, or a pedophile, I think that there's a point at which sympathy and understanding needs to be doled out more consistently, and a point at which as soon as you are actively hurting someone and not doing, as much as it's unfair. I mean, welcome to the world. The world's a
Yeah.
harsh, hungry place. it's not your fault that those things were done to you, but now it's your responsibility to not perpetuate that. No one,
Mm-hmm.
because it's inside of you, no one can take it away, and no one can make those things not have happened. It's your job, and you need to take accountability for not passing it forward.
Yeah. I think you're right, though. You really have to sit with that because, I mean, as was evidenced when you brought up the topic, my knee-jerk reaction was, fuck that.
And I think
Like,
knee-jerk
no,
reactions
no sympathy.
are really not valuable when it comes to things like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's why you do have to kind of, it's okay to have knee-jerk reactions, I think. But I also think that there is an incredible value in realizing, and we've been over this before, realizing that you're wrong or realizing that perhaps your point of view can be expanded.
Yeah.
And sitting with something and really thinking about it logically, thinking about it from perhaps different perspectives than your own, and coming to a different conclusion. We've talked about this before. I can't remember in what episode it was, but instead of having that initial, and I think that happens so much now too, is people have that initial thought and then they just run with it.
That was the common
And it's
parlance.
just kind of like, hang on, like,
Possibly
yeah,
not.
common parlance. So it's kind of like, no, just like, okay, it's okay to have that initial reaction. That's fine. Like, you're not to be blamed for that. But then to actually sit and sort of think about it, I think is something that doesn't happen a lot anymore. And I think it's something that is definitely needed. But yeah, I did have to sit with that for a minute because my knee-jerk reaction was abso-fucking-lutely not.
Well, and I want to be clear that my emotional, visceral reaction is repulsion and disgust for all three.
Yes.
Right? Because there are sociopaths. I mean, all serial killers have antisocial personality disorder. Not all people with antisocial personality disorder become serial killers or killers at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same can be true for people who are manipulative and abusive in relationships. The same can be true for people with borderline personality disorder. The same can be true for people who are pedophiles. All of those are transgressive and reprehensible when they begin to act on them. All of those four categories. Mm-hmm. If people give into it, they don't take responsibility or accountability for their own actions, then they need to be punished. But I think that there's something about that, the pervasive sort of, I mean, what I'm trying to say is very nuanced, and I wouldn't be surprised if people get upset. All I'm saying is, let's say for argument's sake, that the messaging was slightly different, which is that if you come from an abusive, manipulative home, or you have attraction to underage people, here's all these resources. We're going to dedicate a lot of time to helping you, not perpetuate that, not hurt anybody, as opposed to, you're fucking disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to hide. They're not going to feel okay about reaching out for the help that might avoid. I mean, my point about this is like, which I don't think is controversial, which is like, maybe there's a better way to go about it to make sure that kids don't get hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I would like to also, I mean, if people have listened this far, I think they should know, but we're talking about things that you are born with that are harmful, like absolutely no questions asked harmful. We're not talking about like you're born as a gay person and you act on that and some Cheryl or whatever Susan says, ew, that's gross. Like, no, we're talking about when you hurt other people.
Cheryl.
Not just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just making up, I don't know, ladies' names. But like, and we're not talking about someone has an opinion that what you're doing is wrong. We're talking about inherently harmful things.
I mean, we're talking about traumatizing another person, people who are underage.
I know. I want to make that distinction because I doubt that those kind of people are listening to our episodes, but I just want to make that distinction. Like, we're not talking about like you're born you're born gay or you're born trans or anything like that, and then you act on that. No, we're talking about like something that you are born with an instinct to hurt someone.
No.
That's what we're talking about.
If you're into it and the person that you're doing it with is over the age of consent, it is into it too. Go with God.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
confused about people.
I just wanted to make that quick distinction.
I get very confused about people who are angry that someone they don't know is gay.
Yes. I mean, that's a conversation for a whole other day.
Somebody's gay somewhere that I don't know, and I don't have to see it. That makes
How
me
dare
very
they
angry.
be happy with someone else who is happy? No.
I almost hate that. I understand why you made that disclaimer, but I almost hate that it's necessary because
I know that you hate it, but I want to make that disclaimer because
You're right.
I really don't want any sort of like, oh, well, they're saying, but no, we're not. We're saying that if you are born with the instinct to hurt someone, that's when this comes into play, not when you're born just different. Like, it's just, and who's to say what is different? I don't know. That's a whole other discussion. But just like, we're not talking about sexuality outside of a sexuality that would harm someone who is under the age of consent, or animals who cannot consent, or, that kind of thing.
Correct. I think we've tortured that one enough. If they don't get it by now, they're not going to get it. They're just going to be angry.
I'm just going to beat it into your head.
But yeah, so
this is my media training coming in, where I'm like, okay, how can we cover all of our bases?
I think that we were incredibly clear, and I feel like that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
But I might be wrong.
Yeah.
So
let's bringing it back to manipulation and kind of like what we were talking about. Do you think manipulators know that they are manipulative?
Sometimes, not always. I think that it's instinct. It seems to be, right? Because it's so consistent. Like I said, like that's my fascination with it. It seems like they've all read the same book about how to have these conversations, and I know that they haven't. So why is it so consistent? And I think it's just a behavior that's learned that they never grow out of, that they don't know that they're I don't know. I mean, that it's complicated because I think even the data would say that it's probably person to person, and there are some people who identify that they have this gift to manipulate, and they become con artists. They can get into a room and make the room full of people believe whatever it is they need to believe to get what they want. That's deliberate. They know that they're doing that. Somebody who's on the back foot and in a corner inside of a relationship that they at least claim that they want to maintain is doing this out of desperation to shift the focus of the conversation. But I don't think they're doing what you were talking about earlier, where they say, well, if she accuses me, of talking to my ex-girlfriend, I'm going to do these things in order to win. I think it's just how that's their style. And I don't know that it's as volitional as saying like, all right, well, here's step one. And so she's going to corner me on this thing, and I'm going to admit to the smallest possible version of it. Because I know that I can't get around that one, but then I'm going to shift the conversation about how it's not as, you sound a little hysterical. It's not as big a deal as you're making it out to be. Turn it back around on you, and then eventually.
Have you ever manipulated someone?
Not like that. No. I'm pretty good at.
I feel like you're pretty black and white about these things, where you are like really staunchly against this sort of thing. Whereas like I can flat out say like I know I've manipulated people in relationships and otherwise.
Have I manipulated people? I'm sure.
Not like super maliciously, but I know that I have. So that's why I'm asking you.
I would say not in relationships, but in business. I think that you know this about me. If I need somebody to believe something, well, this is going to be weird. I'm a pretty good liar. I'm very dry. I mean, so let's make it fun instead of nefarious. I can be sarcastic without the person that I'm being sarcastic with understanding that there's sarcasm there. I can make something that's not
Yeah,
true sound.
me, 100%.
Yes, I can make things sound incredibly believable. My own mother doesn't know when I'm doing it. So if I need you to believe something that's not true, I can sell it, and I probably am sharp enough that I can get ahead of any of your inquiries and have a good explanation ready to go. I will do that in business, and I don't think that I don't have any moral, and I don't feel any moral tension with that.
Hmm.
I would say probably not, or almost definitely not. Not the way that we're talking about it here.
Almost certainly not.
Almost certainly not. I don't want to be in that relationship that's built on that foundation. I don't.
Hmm.
So I would say no. I don't think so. I mean, it would be interesting to talk to other people. I mean, I think that sometimes if you're infatuated with someone and pursue them hard. Well, I don't know. When you're starting a relationship, you present the best possible version of yourself and leave out the bad stuff. Is that lying? Is that manipulative? Not really.
I don't know. A little bit, I suppose. It's more admittance, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose, yeah.
When do the push-up bras and thongs go back into the drawer? You know.
Yeah.
So I would say no. At least not in relationships that I can remember. Certainly not out of my. I mean, I think maybe in my early 20s, I'm embarrassed by some of my behavior, but once I sort of found out what I wanted, the kind of relationship I wanted, both friendships such as ours and romantic relationships, I don't
Hmm.
want it to be made of that. I don't want to be tricking someone into being with me, and that's basically what they're doing. It's not real.
So do you see relationships, whether platonic or romantic, as chess games?
No, I think that's exactly the wrong way to look at it because that's adversarial.
I mean, personally, I would find that to be exhausting. But
That's
I have been in those situations where it is, I mean, as I said, an emotionally manipulative, abusive relationship where it was a chess game and it was
a
exhausting.
chess game is
Every single day was
it's
exhausting.
non-cooperative games. I think interpersonal relationships are cooperative games where you're both
Hmm.
person A and I mean
Successful
I,
interpersonal relationships,
yeah,
I will say.
are the
Successful
ones that you
interpersonal
should
relationships.
want. Non-cooperative
Hmm.
games are when someone has to win and if one person wins and one person loses, that's a non-cooperative game. A cooperative game is where player A and player B are both they can both win if they work together.
Hmm.
That's the version of interpersonal relationships that I want. I don't I think that some people think of it like if for me to win, they have to lose. That's chess.
Yeah.
But for I want in my uh, either platonic, such as us, or romantic relationships, I want for in. I mean, let's isolate our entire friendship, set that to the side, and think about this. This is not adversarial. What we're doing. For me to win, you need to. I mean, for me to be successful at ACN, I want you to be successful,
Hmm.
and vice versa. If we were trying to one up each other, or if we were thinking about it like, well, Dan really has to fuck up the ACN so I look better because I'm in charge of the possibly nots, then that would be an adversarial position. For me to win, Dan
Yeah.
has to lose. But we're thinking about it for us to win, we both win in our own places. And I think about that in
Yeah.
relationships in general. And honestly, if I get an inkling that that's not the goal of the person opposite me at the board, I'm going to walk away.
And that's that.
Mhm.
I mean, truly, I think that's a mature way to look at it as well. I think that's something that happens as you mature. You see things that way.
And that would
I
be the
think when
goal.
you are younger, yeah, when you're younger, I think it can be that. sort of like I need to come out on top sort of thing. But then I think as you mature, life kind of exhausts you.
It does.
and you sort of broaden your thinking, and then you realize that the success is not your own success in relationships. The success is a shared success.
I mean, I had sort of a different thing that I had to mature into, which was not being manipulative, but to engage with people emotionally, honestly, and not bury my emotions or their emotions. With friends, I mean, under 5 or 6 layers of irony, and pretend not to care and treat it like a joke. It can be cute when you're 22, not when you're 40.
I have actually seen that from you.
Yeah.
Where I think the first time that you made some sort of like emotionally supportive comment to me, I said, "What the? Who the fuck are you? Where is Dan? What's going on?"
And that
that's
slightly. I feel slightly ashamed of that because it shouldn't be such a revelation. But I'm hoping that
just hadn't been our relationship up until then. I don't think, but I mean, we've definitely gone beyond that now.
Yeah.
But I think. As you were saying, you sort of matured into that.
And I realized what is the point? I do care about you. And I care about, I mean, people I keep in my life, I do care about. Why, what is I don't know. I don't have a better way to say it than it's just like, it could be kind of cute and fun and like, yeah, go fuck yourself. I don't care that you're having a bad time.
Yeah.
When you're 20.
But we still do that.
We do, but you should be able to call an audible on the play.
Yeah.
Is this something to joke about?
It's not a weakness to be a decent human being.
Correct. And that has taken me a significant amount of therapy. But I got here. God damn it. I did it.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Decent human beings. Well, you know. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
I'm Layla Lawrence.
And I'm Dan Lauer.
And this has been Possibly Not.